All right, everybody. Welcome back to episode number 6 of the Real Tea Radio Show. My name is Rich, your local real estate broker. And today I have a good buddy of mine. His name is Tanner with Horner Roofing. Tanner is a client, friend, roofer, dad, new dad. And again, like a really good friend, and I enjoy kicking his ass in ping pong. But Tanner, tell the audience who you are, man. Where you're from. You're new to Colorado for the most part.
Yep.
How'd you get into roofing? I mean, just give us a quick, elevator pitch, and we'll go from there.
Um, as Rich said, I'm Tanner Roberts. Can't say the one and only because there's many out there. Uh, yeah, I'm from Indiana, a little small town called Napanee, Indiana, kind of about 30 minutes South Bend. Uh, yeah, new dad as of this year. Woohoo! That's going extremely well. Kind of how I jumped into, I didn't, the roofing industry happened by accident. Let's just be real. A little tidbit about me. I got divorced in 19, which led me to a new job a week later after I got laid off into the factory. And then, yeah, I started applying to jobs in Horner. So be it. Plucked me out of thin air from Indeed. And here we are in Colorado. I would say almost, 5 years later. And bought a house here, rocking and rolling with an office. But yeah, so coming down to that, yeah, I didn't seek ever to get into the roofing industry because, yeah, who would ever want to do that? Sales is scary, right? As you're in the industry yourself. So, I actually quit Horner once and came back. So,
I didn't know that.
yeah, so it was actually 3 days in and ended up telling him, hey, maybe I should think about this. Quite big jump. Was in a need of good stability for financial income, and but then come to the conclusion, well, we just got to try to make this work, and yeah, we made it work out. So
Why did they have you door
um
knocking? Is that
yeah,
what it was coming
absolutely.
down
So it
to,
all
or?
started, yeah, so I mean, you come into something so green, you don't know any better, right? So I didn't even know like door knocking was a scary thing. I didn't even really know anything about door knocking.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was in a neighborhood you wouldn't really run into people knocking on your door. That's how small my town was when I grew up. So it was really foreign to me, but also for me, it was a strength that I didn't know I had. Is obviously talking, selling people, the whole 9 yards when it comes down to it, and making that personal connection with them. And found out I was pretty good at it, and as I was just slaying doors, and then ended up getting into a position of just taking leads all the time. Actually, the guy that trained me in, I ended up taking his job, and then yeah, I ended up getting that going. Ended up bringing some of my closest friends. My childhood best friend actually runs the Indiana office. Brought him in 2020. Another good friend of mine you've met, Derek, brought him into the sales guy over in Indiana also. Um, and yeah, man, just kind of put myself in a position. Just ask like, what can I do to put myself um, to keep advancing through the company, right? Like what do I have to do to get to this next spot that I want to get to? And that's the question I
Yes.
kept asking, and that's where I ended up, right? Got offered, hey, anywhere in the country, obviously where it makes sense, do you want to operate an office for Horner? And obviously it was a yes, right? An opportunity you don't get very often, especially in a young, growing company, family owned. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff going on there. So Colorado was the option. It was the first place that I visited, and it was obviously the one and only place I needed to visit to end up moving here. So obviously Jenna moved out here with me. As
The
you know,
wife. The
we could
wife.
go on. We could go on with some funny stories later on with your interpretation of us moving over here in the whole 9 yards. That's always fun stuff. But yeah, and then yeah, still trying to grow. I think that's the biggest thing of what I get out of this company is the growth aspect of it. As you can tell, me and you talk about it back and forth with some of our leadership books that we go through, our self development
Sure.
books that we go through. And I think that was another thing that really catapulted me out here to be able to keep growing and understanding, like even this year, it being a big storm year here in Colorado, just the things I keep learning. I'm always going to keep learning, um, and as you should as a leader, I think those are the big things that put me in this position that I am in now, but still, developing each and every day, trying to. So
Yeah, well, and at the end of the day, like you put yourself in that position, and I'm glad that you brought that up because you're one of those people, that puts yourself in a position to advance. And you think long term, and you have to with any career path, with any life, anything like that. Like I was just talking to one of my buddies, and he was talking about it, the salary that he was offered, this and that. It's not the most glamorous salary. However, like the things that he's going to learn just within a year, within, the industry specifically was commercial real estate. So
yeah,
he's transitioning from residential into commercial, which is awesome. I think it's a great time to do that, especially with some of the blood in the water in the commercial space. But,
yeah,
he's worried that his, initial salary is just not adequate compared to what he was getting, on the residential side. And I'm like, dude, you need to think of the long term play here. And I think that's what you've always done very well. And it shows, man. I mean, you came out here with your
yeah.
girlfriend, then now your
Right,
wife,
right,
man.
yeah. Here in
Um,
couple weeks. I think yeah, it's about 2 weeks here.
so
We'll be wiped up.
any like particular challenges that you've went through, moving here. How did you overcome those? And then on the flip side, like what are some triumphs, some major victories, from moving here? Like how have you dealt with that? Juggled that with the roofing, starting basically a roofing branch here out in Colorado just from start.
Yeah. I'd say definitely the the challenges were always the unknown, right? You don't know what to expect when you walk into something like that, especially because it's my first office out here. I think that was the scary part. Is like, hey, I don't know what to expect. What's going to be my approach? And obviously, you have some mentors to bounce ideas off of and how you can do this or that, right? But ultimately, it's you decide and figure out because this is your baby. Um,
Yep.
yeah, so it was just trying to figure out the niche of the market out here compared to back where in Indiana where I ran that office out there for a year and a half or so. And that was the hard part, but now it's if you fast forward here, it's more the challenges of um, reliable people to do work for you. So I think that's the biggest thing, as we have discussed, and uh, it's
The
that's the
labor.
yeah, the labor is the worst part. But once you find a good one, then then you start really grooving. And I know we've in certain aspects with the roofing side of things, that's definitely where we're grooving. It's just right now, it's just everything's screwed with supply. Um, but siding's been bumpy, and those aspects, just because you get somebody who's doing good work for a little bit, and then they kind of fizzle out, and then communication gets worse, and then it's like, hey, why
Sure.
aren't you showing up to this job? And then he's gone. Now you're finding another guy. And when you go through
Not
that more than
another one.
yeah, right, and then it's like when you go through that a few times, man, it's exhausting. That is exhausting. Of anything that I do in my job, that is by far the most exhausting part. So I'd say that's the biggest challenges as of like right now. But back then it was just figuring it out, man. We're almost going 3 years here, which is crazy to think about. That's wild. Um,
Has it? It's not been four.
no, so three coming up this when we closed in February. So
Okay.
so uh
So you've been in roofing, what would you say, like 5, 6, 7 years?
so fourth year, fifth season. So five
Okay.
summers under my belt, 4 years technically July 1st.
Okay.
So
So
yeah.
half a decade, man, is a pretty, solid amount of time to be in an industry. With you being where you are today, 5 seasons in, where do you see the roofing industry going down the line in the future? Any future insights? Like, do you see the industry taking any crazy turns, or any new innovations
Um,
coming into play? Like what's going on in the marketplace
so
generally
I
speaking?
know in COVID times, everybody was they were spending a lot of money, but at the same time, a lot of people weren't too. I
Hmm.
think once we kind of got out of that, the free play money that the government was just giving everybody, and they were doing whatever they want. You got people really tightened it up where it's everything was getting expensive again, and nobody was wanting to pay out of pocket essentially, right?
Hmm.
Whereas now the reason why I came out to Colorado is the niche is the insurance market. So
The
as
hail.
long yeah, exactly. So it's once you have the disasters happen, it's much easier to help the homeowner through their insurance process because any contractor can use the insurance estimate as long as it's appropriate, right?
Sure.
It's just it's I think that's the biggest thing is like in Indiana, you don't have as frequent as the storms happening, right? So your approach is a little bit different when it comes down to out of pockets. Well, out there, you might have to take a little bit of a pay cut out of your pocket for your sale for an out of pocket, so you can come down to pricing and be even competitive anymore.
Competitive, sure.
Yeah, because you can be a quality company all you want, right? But there's a competitive line, right? And you want to stay within that. Whereas like out here in Colorado, I bet you like 85 to 90% year in year out of our clients are going to be through the insurance. So for us, that market, you don't see it unless there's no storms, right? Which happens. We had a 3 year stretch out here in Colorado. 2 years, I was here, nothing was really happening, which was actually a blessing. I was able to get everything situated, marketing, the whole 9 yards. But at the same time, that can get scary. You think about, well, what happens if 5 years happens.
Right.
Um, but statistically speaking, if you look at it, the reason why I moved here, looked at all the statistics, every 3 years it's going to pour down hail somewhere. So, but yeah, to go back to to Indiana, that market, you're looking when there's not storms because every 5 years maybe, and it's not even in the same area, right? It's the whole state.
Hmm.
It gets a little bit tough, especially because it is economy based. Pricing goes up, material goes up, labor goes up. It's just I think that's what makes it the tough part of this industry, and seeing the changes in it is just based on the economy. I think.
Yeah, well, you picked a
Yeah,
great
lower.
state to come to because
Yeah,
we do get a
yeah,
hell of a lot of hail here, and I got
yeah.
another buddy that does hail dents on cars, man, and business is booming. And that's always going to happen. Like it's just,
Can you total out my truck?
bring it on in, I guess, man.
Oh
We'll hop on there with some
man.
screwdrivers and.
Yeah, yeah. You might have to cut that out.
Oh man, oh no, everybody knows we're kidding,
Yeah.
man. So you don't foresee like robots putting on roofs anytime soon or anything like that?
No, I just don't. No, because yeah, I wouldn't even know how to go down that rabbit trail. Like I'm even just trying to think about that now, and
Well, and the reason I bring it up, so the
yeah.
robot thing, like now
I
my
mean, it
mind's
could
kind of,
happen. I can't say it can't, but I think
well,
people there's a more personal. Yeah,
they're 3D printing houses. I mean, I'm
yeah,
sure they're going to start doing that. But what I wanted to bring up is like solar. So solar and roofers work hand in hand, right?
yeah,
And Tesla, God, it's been a while, man. But like that company, Elon, is notorious for like putting something out, and then it's like, we'll have it out next year, and it's 10 years later.
yeah,
Um, but he was putting out these shingles, like they were basically like little mini solar panels. Have you seen these?
yeah. Oh yeah, I've seen a couple of them here in Colorado. They're terrible.
Really? Why?
Yeah, I mean, I just think the install process, and it's not a Tesla like it's a solar certified guy that goes out and Tesla subs it out because Tesla bought out Solar City
Yeah,
and
that
out
was
here
his
in Colorado.
cousin or his brother or something.
Yeah, yeah. So they bought out Solar City and they still just kind of sub out the work. Every once in a blue moon, you'll probably see a Tesla guy out there, maybe, a tech, but
Yeah.
it's not very often. They usually have these guys because it's the cost, right?
So
If you got to
the
pay an in-house
product
guy,
is the product garbage or like the
I
shingle itself?
it's like anything that comes out new, man. There's always some bumps in the road with it. And like I said, I think it's mainly just installing. You find more issues with that. You're still going to get great, like your solar benefits out of it, like anything else. But I
Sure.
mean, it's just, yeah, it's 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 not the greatest product to just put on your roof to rely on nothing to leak. But not every case is the same. I mean, so there's probably some out there that are never going to see a leak, and there's some that are like you could never put a Tesla system on there because that's all you're going to see is leaks. So,
Right.
but and it's really specific too. It's like you get down with tile roofs, like for our house, right? An engineer has to come in and look at everything to make sure it's going to hold the weight of that, right? Or you're going to have the same exact thing come out and make sure, yeah, hey, all your surfaces are good to lay this because it can't be bumpy, right? It's got to be literally perfectly symmetrical everywhere. The seams got to match up well. I mean, there's a lot of different variables that go in than rather just slapping your shingles down from the eaves and pop 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 your 4 to 6 nails and roll it
Sure.
all the way up, right? So, and it is. crazy expensive.
Yeah,
Crazy.
no, and it's an interesting topic, and I always like diving into that kind of stuff because future innovations that shake up industries are interesting to me. Both in my industry, roofing, cars, like you name it.
Yeah.
And I think that it's coming. I mean, solar guys, these solar companies that popped up over the last 5 years. I mean, they're making money hand over fist. I know a couple of guys that are making damn good money doing it. I just don't think that the technology is very efficient and it's there yet. And I know personally when, people sell their houses with solar on them, unless they own the panels, it is a pain in the fucking ass, man.
Yeah,
Um,
I would always, yeah, I'd always buy those things outright if you can. I mean, even though they're
yeah,
expensive, but they always know, like, if you do it, they're gonna they yeah. There's
there's pros
ways
and
that
cons
yeah,
to
and that's what I
lease them
say.
and buy
It's
them, and you
because
know,
you're going to be paying an outrageous amount of money. I mean, and to recoup that over what is it, maybe 10, 15 years, and you're doing the
yeah.
same thing in a lease in that scenario. But it's yeah,
It's just messy. It's sticky. It's not super efficient. It's not very cost effective. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But
some of it's
forget,
even fraudulent.
yeah. I mean, forget the solar
Yeah.
stuff, man.
If
So
you want my opinion though, if you were to put solar in your house, don't put it on your roof. But if you had to, like, get a shingle and put it on. Get the panels. I mean, most cost effective. If you want to toss Elon 150K for a roof, then go right for it. But you're gonna get just
damn,
as
they're
good.
150
I mean, it
for
just
those.
depends on the size of roof.
Right, right.
Out here in Colorado, you're averaging 30 squares of roof. So somebody that is putting that on ain't putting it on 30 squares of roof. They're putting it on a lot of roof because they're able to pay for it, right?
Sure.
Um, so you're looking at like 50, 40 to 50 squares at least, and yeah, you're 100 to 150 there all day.
Pricey, pricey, just like his cars.
Yeah,
So you're in sales,
yeah.
man. You're a high performing person. You have a newborn kid. You and Jenna are killing it. As far as like personal habits go, man, and the things that keep you going. I know you're a reader, and we'll get into your book choices here in a little bit. But if you could pick like one or two habits that have been life changing for you, or that have allowed you to continue to be the high performing individual you are, what would they be? Like what do you
Like
do?
things that have changed since, like, say, like, babies come or whatnot, or are you just saying just in general as I grow, like habits that have changed over time?
Either or, man. I think more so what I'm interested in is what have you stuck to over even before the baby was here that has like kept you going with sales and roofing and your career and all of that. Like,
Dude, you want my honest opinion? I don't think it's anything that I've changed out of my daily routine or anything, because I do change stuff, right? Like, as you should. You shouldn't just be a robot throughout your day and everything. Because as
sure,
you do get growth and hit different chapters of your life, your routine changes, right? But I think the biggest thing was me is like managing my stress. So like when me and that's you don't hear enough people talking about that, and I think people let things like overwhelm them pretty quickly because people are afraid to put more on their plate, right? I'm always wanting to put more on my plate, but I do get those same stresses as what everybody else does. It's just how do I handle them?
yes,
Um, I'll just be real. One is definitely smoking some pot every once in a blue moon, right? I think that helps anybody out. But I
yeah,
think just like I think the books, the growth books, it teaches you, like, different ways, because meditation can be one with for some people, but it ain't going to be for everybody, right? Yoga, the whole nine yards. I think it was for me is just keeping my mind busy with other things, whether that
hmm
be like, I play flag football outside of all this. I do like to read some self-development stuff, a podcast. Like, I like to keep my mind busy, because if I sit there and just think and ponder on these things that do weigh you down, I think that is what the anxiety kicks in, and then my stress, builds up. And then
yeah,
then I'm not as effective, right? Then I actually start wanting to procrastinate. Um, just because, being real, and it's actually something I just learned not too long ago with that Six Geniuses book that I had just shared with you. But like, I didn't realize my tenacity is not as good as what I thought it was, right? Like, so
sure,
you learn those things and you try to be focused on that, and I think that's what keeps my stress levels down, because I'm always trying to keep growing, and I'm not trying to let these big things that weigh me down and be like the focal point of, you know what I mean? Like you have to get through them, but you got to be able to, take your eyes off of it every once in a while and not sit there and just dwell on it. I think that's the biggest thing for me is just allocating my mind in different spots to make sure those stress levels are kind of minimized. So
Yeah, and you're a pretty like hyperactive person, and I hope you don't take that the wrong way, but that's just
no,
who
no,
you are as a
I
human
know that. I
being,
mean, dude, look, like I don't, I'm lean as lean can get, man. I just
for
have more
sure.
energy than most, and yeah,
And managing stress, I mean, I that's huge for me too. And a lot of people that are in these high stress, environments, whether it be their career at home, personally or professionally, managing that stress is pivotal because it can make you or break you, man. And
dude, it's what
smoking
makes
a
you live longer or not.
yeah, I mean smoking a doobie, having a glass of Jack or whatever, those are mechanisms to cope with that.
It's
And
superficial.
it's the quick fix. And dude, I'm no saint. I do the same thing. Lately, like as I've been getting older, I've been looking at more sustainable, ways to cope with stress that are just more beneficial to my health.
Hmm.
Working out, I mean, is one of
For
them.
sure.
Working out, like you said, meditation, yoga. Those are things that I think if you can tap into those and really get into the routine and habits of those and consistently do them on, a daily or every other day basis, I think that helps a lot with mitigating those stress levels, whether it's, professionally, career wise, or personally. You just had a kid, man. Like, what's been the hardest, part of that? I mean, how
Dude,
Allie's what?
it's
She's 8 months, 7 months,
almost 8 months. Yeah, here
eight
a
months.
couple.
So one
Yeah.
thing, dude, what's been the hardest fucking thing in the last 8 months of having Allie, having a
Um,
newborn?
Obviously adjusting to not having your own free will as much anymore. You know what I mean? So
So
I think
time.
that's yeah. So I think that's like, when I get home, I can't be like, oh, I just want to, go to Launchpad and have a beer. Like, no, I'm
Yeah,
home
yeah.
with my kid, and that I think that's like the biggest change because I'll be real, man. She's been a saint. She's been great.
She's
We
a
have our
good kid, man.
times.
She's a good
Yeah,
baby.
yeah. So it that we've been blessed there, and we're probably gonna end up getting it on the next one. But I think that's the biggest thing is just the free will aspect. And me and Jenna have even talked about that too. I think she would even openly admit that is just, you know, I think now it's easier, but I think the first like I think, 3, 4, 5 months, you kind of think like, it was nice when me and her just got up and hey, let's just go out tonight and go do something. That
Yeah.
ain't the case anymore. There's more game planning and all that involved. But
It's an
um,
adjustment for sure.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that
If it
that
isn't, then I don't know if you're even watching your kid. You
Yeah, no, it's
know,
an adjustment, and I think a lot of people think about like, we think about it all the time. It's like, we have two dogs, you guys have dogs too, but like, just that commitment to them and that strain on your time and free will, like you said, you can't just,
yeah,
I mean, fuck, the dogs can only be locked up for a couple hours. Like we can't just go out to the mountains for, however long and just leave them in
yeah.
their cages. You know what I mean? And that's their dogs, like
Well,
not a
and
human being.
that's a good point too, because I think if you think about it, even having dogs, it limits your free will in that regard too. So
100%, of
I think
course.
so. Then maybe the adjustment of having a child, that you see that takes more of it, but I think the adjustment of it was, it wasn't nearly as bad as for people that don't have anything, and then they bring a child into it, and then they probably don't cope with it nearly as well, right? Because they haven't had anything that takes their free will; they're doing whatever they want.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah, it's a big leap, man. It's a big jump. I'm super proud of you, if I can say that, because I knew you pre-kid, and now I know you as a father. And I mean, you guys are doing a damn good job, and I respect the hell out of you for taking that on. Because I know it wasn't
appreciate it.
exactly super duper planned. It was kind of
No,
half and half
no,
planned.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, man, good work with that. What, dude? The six. What book are you reading right now? The Six Working
Um,
Geniuses, right? Or the six?
yeah. So the six working geniuses. That's the one we're doing with our company wide one.
Okay.
Kind of just diagnoses, and we're not all the way through it yet, but it kind of gives you a fictional character and story to kind of representate these geniuses. And it just kind of takes you through. Like you take this test before the book, it tells you what you suck at, what you need, what you're good at, right? So
Yeah.
everybody needs to hear every once in a while, and it gives you a wake up call. Like I just told you, one of them, that I didn't realize that, I struggle with is tenacity, finishing out things, and then I think about like, well, shoot, I actually, yeah, I put the laundry in the washer, I put it in the dryer, but I don't take it out of the dryer to fold it. So yeah, it makes sense that that falls in that
Dude, I
category,
hate
right?
laundry. I
Dude,
hate doing laundry.
whoever likes laundry, they fall under the category of people that put their milk in before their cereal. They're crazy. There's something wrong with them, man. There's something wrong with them.
Yup.
So,
That's hilarious.
so it's yeah, and I think it just really does. It diagnoses that, especially on a company aspect, because you need that, right? Because we've had conversations of your company will be only as big as the people that you're putting into place, and they got to be in the right place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that book talks about, you might be in the right spot and you get a promotion and that person promotes you in a spot that you're not good at, right? They don't recognize that. They just think you deserve the promotion because, you are outstanding in what you're doing. But why don't you put that person in a spot that, they're going to stay outstanding and not go in a spot that they're like, man, I hate my job now.
Sure.
So that's a really good book that we've been diving into. I'm excited actually. We're like maybe a little bit halfway through. And then the
I
other one
started it. It's good.
oh,
It's
really?
good.
Nice,
He
nice.
right now he's still going through
Takes
like
a
his
while.
previous jobs and all that. I'm really like waiting to
Bull,
dive into the
right?
meat
His
of
name's
it, you
Bull, I
know.
think. If I remember right.
Something like that, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a while to get it rolling for it to really get you to understand everything. Did you take the test before it?
No, because you know what? I got it on Audible, so I've just been
Oh,
listening
okay.
to it. You know, I drive a lot.
Just
You
Google the
know, I
test. You'll be able to do it, and like it'll
yeah.
really spell it out, man. It's good stuff.
Those all of those like self analysis tests though. I always feel like I'm honest, but I'm always trying to like reverse engineer them when I'm answering the questions.
Nah.
You know, like the disc profile
Yeah.
stuff. You like look at
Yeah.
the question and you're like, all right, I know if I answer it this way, like I'm gonna score lower or higher. So I'm gonna answer it this way. And like I can't keep my brain from not doing that. So I never know if it's like an accurate representation of me because I always feel like
Yeah.
my subconscious like plays the test.
That makes sense. I just sit here and just am straight up with myself, like, fucking let's get this thing,
Yeah.
as
Probably
truthful
the
as I
best
can.
way to
Because
do it is after a couple of fucking whiskeys, man.
hey, you ain't lying. I
You
mean,
know,
you try that out. Because
shooting off the cuff, you know?
yeah, but I think like if you really do answer honestly and you go back to it
Yeah,
and then just look like revert back to your daily habits, what you do, and you're gonna be like, holy shit, man, like I got some problems.
I
uh,
know, right?
But yeah, and then our Monday sales book, our sales guide book that I'm doing with the guys, it's 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. I've read that book like 5 or 6 times, and I highly recommend it because it's like they hit you in different chapters of life, man. I mean, from when I read that in 2019, fall of 2019 to now, like definitely hits me way different than what it did then. So I like to always reread that book with some of these, sales guys. We have some new sales guys, so it's always good to hear there's 15 things it's teaching you of different types of growth. It's pretty crazy for
Yeah.
anybody to think that like you're going to hit all 15 of those in a year, right? That's like a whole lifelong type of situation, man. Like that's a book you keep in your pocket and keep reading it.
So
Um,
to the chapters of life, because I want to kind of unpack that. You're an enlightened cat. That's why you're on the show. That's why I love you, man.
I try, I try.
You know, like for your, chapters of life, if you were to go back like 10 years or 15 or whatever it is, right? Like what advice would you give yourself? I mean, you got married super young. It's almost like you lived a whole other life before you're living this one.
I mean, I feel like
Is there any
I feel like I've lived a lot of lives.
well, yeah. So, what advice would you give yourself, your younger self, like, knowing where you're going to end up now, and how you would approach life differently or the same, or if you wouldn't have changed a damn thing, um, what would you tell your younger self?
Take more advice. I think that's the biggest thing. I think if I would have listened, obviously the people that you think you know more, but you're 18 years old, man, 15 years old. Like you don't know anything. You haven't been in life. You haven't paid a dime of taxes. Like,
You're
come
a
on now.
baby.
Exactly. So, you don't know shit. Sorry. and I was that person that, I knew I didn't know anything, but for what the situation I was in, thinking I knew what I thought I knew better. That's what I guess
We
the way I'll
still
put
don't
it.
know shit, Tanner.
Bro, no, I just hit, was it, level 3 in life. I'm 30. Like I just hit level
Yeah.
3, man. I'm hitting 100, man. That's my goal. So I got 7 more levels to hit. So I know there's gonna be a lot of some craziness to still indulge and learn, and like I said, take more advice, because I wouldn't be here now if I didn't take that advice. So I think that's the biggest thing for me is, um, be more open to people's advice, because everybody has a different perspective, but sometimes that perspective can work for you. Not everybody's perspective is going to work for you. So I think that was the biggest thing for me, right? Because
It,
I had a brother
it's
in
a
my ear
common
saying not to get married. So
It's dude, it's a common theme, man. With the people that I talk to, a lot of it is like being more open minded, taking advice, realizing that you really don't know nothing.
yeah,
But also with that said, like you have to make sure that you're taking advice from the proper people, I think at 18 or being a kid, you can kind
it's
of
hard to
get that gut.
recognize.
Well, it is, but I think you can always get that gut feeling, man, of like who you should be listening to.
Yeah,
Like you look at somebody and like even though, let's just say like you're a gangbanger and you're looking at, your gangbanger buddies, they rose through the ranks and blah blah blah. But like something in you, that gut feeling is telling you like, maybe I should listen to like my cousin who's a lawyer or my
yeah. It's like
brother-in-law who's a doctor, like
yeah, it's like taking financial advice from somebody that's like in so much debt up to their ears they don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and I think that's the other thing too. That's a good point, because I think growing up it was, you had to try to decipher what was good advice, and like, the advice I was getting from my parents, just being honest, wasn't always the best advice.
sure.
Whereas then I would have to seek advice elsewhere or learn my own self, right? Like fall on my own face and be like, well, that's something I can't do. And um, I think that's the biggest thing, is I think once you kind of just take it slow and learn life, and I mean, I think that's the thing, that you don't want to try to put too much on your plate at that young of an age, because then sometimes you get people, you'll just fall into the societal mindset, right? You'll fall on your face and you'll go right into the work field that has a ceiling above your head, and that's where you'll stay, right? And I think,
God, that
and
is
I
so scary, dude.
yeah, and
I like
I think,
so scary, man.
well, I think too, it just it's and I could go down this rabbit hole forever about the whole college situation, but if
You
you
know
go to
what? It came,
college,
dude. It came up on the back end, like with family stuff. The last couple of days, and 18-year-old just went to college, and it's coming up. Like, dude, personally, I would not have gone to college nor finished and gotten a bachelor's if it weren't for my parents literally pushing me into it and saying, "You're the first one out of our family to get a degree. Go
yeah,
do it."
that was the same thing for me too, but it was more or less like I had a I had the poor man scholarship. That's what I call it. So I had a lot of my school paid for. So for me, it was like you need to go. But what the stipulation on that scholarship was is I had to use it within a year, otherwise I would lose it. So
Okay.
I pretty much had to use it right away. I couldn't sit here and wait like, hey, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
Um, and like for me, coming like from the background that I did, I didn't have a lot of exposure to like opportunities in life. So I didn't get to know like, oh, do I want to be a doctor, a vet, or whatever it may be, right? Because I just wasn't exposed to that. It was literally just making ends meet, playing my sports, and going to school. That was the extent of it. There was no coaching of like, well, what do you want to do, or there wasn't,
Yeah.
or if that question was asked, it was so like, it wasn't my family. It was someone like, do you know what you want to go do?
A
Like,
school counselor, dude,
yeah,
or
but
whoever
even
it may be,
but
and
and that's even a point proven that like school counselors aren't doing a good enough job advising what students should or shouldn't do. They're just telling them they should hop into school because that's what they did. And then now we've gotten into this tradition of college, and now everybody's starting to figure out when you get out of college you get a bad job and now you're in the hole and you can't pay your stuff, that you can't put your school debt to bankruptcy. So
you can, man,
and
and it's a big issue right now. Student loans are just starting up right now, and
I know.
I think
I
the
try. I
last
tried being the guy to get him taken care of, but dang it,
um,
Biden.
I think the last decade, last 15, 20 years, if you look at the cost of tuition, Man, I'm a numbers person, and I've always looked at my ROI. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I just never saw the ROI in a college education. And I got a poor man's bachelor's degree, man. I think out
Hmm.
the door for 4 years, it cost me like 20, 25K or something like that. Compared to like, some of these kids got 60, 80, 100 grand on their
I mean,
necks just for their
I was
bachelor's.
lucky. It was like 18 a year for me, and that was expensive at that time, right? It was in like
I
2012,
still
and
think that's expensive, dude, for what you're getting out of it. Like, unless you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer and engineer, you don't need a fucking degree.
that should be like the max. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's just there's too many moving parts that the government are involved with to make it expensive. So, and that's the main reason why you can't get rid of it ever. So it's
they
under your name
started
forever.
they started backing and subsidizing the fucking loans, dude. That's why these
Yeah.
colleges saw it as an opportunity. I
Yep.
worked in the financial aid thing for 9 months, dude. When I moved back to Illinois, I think you know the story, but
Yeah.
it was an ethical thing, man. Like they're telling these kids, primarily most of them, down south in the southern states, didn't know their fucking ass from their front. All
They
right,
hear
and
free money or
dude, they
free
hear
free
free
money.
money. Yeah, they hear loan free, and they're just jumping in without even reading the dotted line, man. And it's sad.
I was that guy. I was one of
It's
those guys.
sad. And at the end of the day, man, you have to look at it like, okay, like this is going to cost me, 50K for a 4 year degree, in business administration. Like, let's just use that for an example because that was my degree. And I've learned more in business outside of school in the business world than college could ever fucking teach me. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like,
college should be designed for like the um
trades. I mean, that would
yeah,
be
like
helpful. Like, we
yeah, I
definitely
mean,
don't have
you
enough
know, like
electricians and
doctors,
plumbers.
lawyers, nurses, stuff like that, like very understandable, right? But it's you go back to it and I didn't even know you had to go to college to be a cop now.
Really?
Not in some exactly not in some places because they're hurting so bad they're just gonna do the training and whatnot. But yeah,
Hmm.
you can go for law enforcement, man. I was like, this is kind of wild. I thought you could go get certifications, you go to academy, and then you do your thing. Now they're trying to make people go to school for being a cop
Damn.
and
There goes
and
my Beverly Hills Cops dream, man.
right. I mean, I don't think that's always the case in some areas. I think it's probably a per state situation. Um, but yeah, you're seeing that more. I mean, it's a lot of it just turned into, hey, we can gobble up all this money and stick people because, dude, the interest rates once they start nailing you after school, dude,
Yeah,
those things are
and I don't
serious.
think school's bad, man. Even to go, to
And
school to become
I
a
don't want to
police
make it seem that
officer.
way either.
And you're not. Again, like, I just want to clarify because neither of us think school is bad. I think where what we think is fucked up, for lack of a better term, is just the cost of it, man. I think that's bad, and I think the way that it's handled is bad. Just like, the healthcare industry is bad, like the way that it's handled, like, versus
I don't know if
preventative
these
care. Just
I don't know if these things would be put in place already, but I thought about it a couple times where, you know, it man, that price should be based on income. You want my honest opinion? I mean, why are we need to help the people that actually need it the most to come to school that actually can't afford it, right? There's probably people out there smarter than you and I combined. There will ever
yeah,
be smarter than Bill Gates and whoever those people are, right?
That
But they
that's a
never get the
very
opportunity.
interesting that's a
But
very interesting perspective, and I think that model would work, dude, because I think the whole
but it
premise
wouldn't make them
behind
money.
education, yeah, is to yank out the smartest, brightest minds out of a nation
Yeah,
and give them the
yeah.
same opportunity.
Yeah, because if you look at our education compared to other countries, it's poor. It's
Oh, it's
poor.
garbage. So
Yeah, it's poor.
my sister came here when she was, I think, 16 or 15, from Poland, and they had her take a math like placement test, and she would have been a freshman here, but her test scores would have placed her in a senior year, like, math level here. And I mean, that's Poland,
The
dude. Like,
standard's
that's,
just bad. The standard's just bad.
yeah,
It's. I mean, you look at yeah. This is funny. You look at like these getting these licenses for the contractor or being a GC and whatnot in some of these
yeah.
states and like for you to pass 70% and you can get your license. It's like, man, we just hold that standard to everybody. But you look at it too. they know the system, man. Like, oh, if we hike that to 80%, we're gonna lose money because the other 10% can't get in to make us money, right? Like, there's a method. If you got the C minus, man, you're good to go, man.
Yeah, no, I love
C
that, man.
minus,
And
doctor, you're good to go, man. Yeah,
yeah,
you
no,
you performed that heart surgery.
I love it, dude. And these are topics that we can talk about for days, as we do. I might be
Yeah,
popping in later tonight. We can unpack them
right.
even more off the air, but we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up here, Tanner. Is there anything else that you'd want to, pass along as words of advice, wisdom to the audience?
Oh man, uh, take it slow. Um, limit your stress. If you're in sales, go sell your ass off. Go put yourself out there. I think that's the biggest thing. I think people don't do that enough. So you put yourself out there, a lot of big things will happen too. You're just creating more opportunity for yourself when you do that. So I think that
I
would be my biggest thing is, get out of your comfort zone
I
and
love it, man.
yeah, put yourself out there.
I love it, guys. So there you go, guys. You heard it from Tanner himself. Dream big, manage your stress levels, and just get after it.
Yep.
So there it is, guys. Tanner, thank you so much for coming on. It was a
Well,
true
thanks for
pleasure
having
to
me
speak
on.
with you. And we'll catch you all on the next one. Thanks, guys. And that's a wrap on another episode of the Real Tea Radio Show. Thank you for tuning in and indulging in these honest and thought-provoking conversations. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, like, and leave a comment on your favorite platform. Remember, the Real Tea keeps flowing on our favorite social media channels, so connect with us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Until next time, keep steeping in truth, growing with purpose, and embracing the authentic flavors of life. This is Rich signing off. Stay brewed.